David Beckham burst onto the scene as a young player.
It's a goal! Second Beckham, the youngster.
He was England's sweetheart.
All these young ladies writing to him, you know.
His skill.
Beckham strikes.
Ability from dead balls.
Beckham! That's absolutely brilliant.
And good looks made him one of the most famous men in the whole of the UK. Even women who didn't care about football would tune into Man United or England games just because of David Beckham.
It didn't make you fall in love with football, though?
No, but I love him and I love to watch him.
But one fateful summer day in the late 90s, everything changed for him.
What was required, and neither was that challenge on Beckham. And Beckham, wait a minute, he's taking another card out for Beckham. It's a red card for David Beckham. Oh no.
Childish, petulant, disgraceful, stupid. Some of the politer words used today by reporters to describe David Beckham.
Did you think he deserved a red card for the kick?
Absolutamente no. Absolutamente no.
It was awful. I remember a woman was sat there with her newspaper, like, showing him the picture of him hanging. Yeah, it's not nice as a parent to see that happening. It makes me want to cry now.
David Beckham went from being the country's sweetheart to having an effigy of him hanged publicly in the nation's capital. How did that switch happen so fast? What offense did he commit to make the fans turn on him like that? This is the story of the game that made David Beckham the most hated man in England. We'll have to go back to the 1998 World Cup for this one. Heading into the tournament, one could say that Beckham was in his prime. The 23-year-old midfielder was named PFA Young Player of the Year in 1997.
The 1997 Young Player of the Year, and thoroughly deserved, David Beckham.
You're attracting attention not only from the back pages of the newspapers, but the front pages and the middle pages.
And was given the famed Man United number 7 shirt going into the new season. United did not win the league in 1998, but Beckham finished with the most assists in the Premier League, so he was always going to be one of the first names in the England squad for the 1998 World Cup. That was going to be his first World Cup outing. In fact, it was his first international tournament of any kind, but it did not start out in the best way possible for him. The England coach Glenn Hoddle came out and said publicly that Beckham was not concentrating on the tournament. That was surely not what a young player wanted the coach saying to the entire world on his first outing with the senior team. But if you think that's bad, spoiler alert, it actually gets worse. Anyway, because of his attitude, the coach decided not to start Beckham for the first 2 games of the World Cup. But in the third game against Colombia, Hoddle gave the youngster his first start, and he repaid the faith in him with a golazo.
Beckham strikes.
Beckham converted a free kick from 30 yards out, and it was his first goal for the England senior team. With that goal, he secured himself a starting spot in the round of 16 game where England were to go up against a tough opponent in Argentina. After what had happened in the 1986 World Cup with Diego Maradona scoring with his hand and knocking the English out on their way to winning the World Cup, the Three Lions came into that round of 16 game with revenge on their lines. But it was always going to be a tough task. Going into that game, Argentina were the only team in the competition yet to concede a goal. But England weren't scared of that. They had the belief and the talent to undo any defense, and they hoped to show that from the very beginning. But unfortunately, the game was off to the most awful start. The game was so heated from the very beginning, and England slipped early. In the 5th minute, England's goalkeeper, David Seaman, brought down Argentina's captain, Diego Simeone, in the box, and the South Americans were awarded a very early penalty. Gabriel Batistuta stepped up and scored. 1-0 Argentina. Definitely not how England wanted the game to begin. But they showed real character and responded just how their fans would have wanted them to. 4 minutes after going a goal down, Michael Owen stormed forward and won England a penalty of their own. England's captain Alan Shearer stepped up and put the ball beyond reach of the Argentina goalkeeper. 10 minutes in, 1-1. Game on. Momentum had now swung England's way, and they made sure to take advantage of that. 6 minutes after Shearer equalised from the spot, Michael Owen went ahead to double the lead for the Brits. David Beckham found Owen with a brilliant through ball, and the 18-year-old wonder kid ran at the Argentina defence and scored a truly brilliant goal, one that's still being referred to as one of England's greatest ever goals. From being 1-0 down in the 6th minute, England now found themselves 2-1 up just 16 minutes in. Every England fan was loving life at that point. They felt confident they could control the game from that point onwards. They could go ahead and extend the lead further and make the Argentines feel sorry for what Maradona did 12 years prior. And the Europeans just kept going. Paul Ince came close to scoring a long-range half-volley, but it went just inches above the crossbar. Scholes also came close, but having made a brilliant run into the box, he was unable to find the target, missing by only centimetres. But Argentina's number 10, Ariel Ortega, was actually causing havoc all around the pitch, trying to make something happen for the South Americans. He was dribbling, creating, shooting, trying everything in the first half, but nothing was going in. Seeing as they couldn't score from open play, Argentina had to devise something brilliant from a dead ball situation. Just before the whistle for halftime went, they got a free kick just outside the box. But instead of going straight for goal, a cheeky pass was sent to Javier Zanetti inside the box. He took one touch, turned, and found the back of the net. A goal straight from the training ground. 2-2. But it was such bad timing for England. They were hoping to go into the halftime break with a lead, but that was taken away from them at the very last second. Anyway, all they needed to do was come out in the second half and finish the job they had started. They looked better than Argentina and just had to keep doing the right things. The game was in their hands. Well, that was until Beckham took it and handed it to Argentina in the opening 2 minutes of the second half. In the 47th minute, Diego Simeone brought Beckham down just around the halfway line, and while he was down, he swung a leg which tripped the Argentina captain and sent him to the ground. For that, Simeone was shown a yellow card while Beckham was shown a straight red.
White ball was required, and neither was that challenge on Beckham. And Beckham, wait a minute, he's taking another card out for Beckham. It's a red card for David Beckham. Oh no.
Now, if there was VAR back then, perhaps that decision would have been reviewed and the red would have been overturned because the touch on Simeone was so slight. In fact, Simeone later admitted to having exaggerated the entire incident and feigned an injury just to try and get Beckham sent off.
Did you think he deserved a red card for the kick?
Absolutamente no. Absolutamente no. De que el contacto es mínimo, hay una exageración, tira a un imaginario golpeo de David.
Good actor. I want to put you in my next movie.
But, well, there wasn't VAR or any type of technology to review the red card decision, so Becks had to walk, and an entire country was seething. But they held their anger in the meantime and focused on the rest of the game. But with a man down, England now had a real mountain to climb. They controlled the first half and led for the most part of it. But with 10 against 11 in the second period, it was a whole different ballgame. Argentina were now on the front foot, and they just kept piling on the pressure. But the Three Lions managed to hold their own. They stayed strong at the back and still tried to roar up front whenever they could. They managed to lock shop throughout the second half, and in the dying moments of the game, Sol Campbell scored for England. At least he thought he did. There was a real scramble in the Argentina box, and it culminated in Campbell heading the ball into an empty net. He and his England teammates ran off celebrating, thinking they had managed to snatch the game at the very death. But the referee blew for a foul on the goalkeeper in the build-up to the goal and disallowed it. The English, who were already in cloud nine, were immediately brought back to earth when the resulting free kick was taken super quickly by the Argentines, catching the England players out of position. Argentina very nearly scored, but Darren Anderton was there just in time to make the all-important tackle. And that was how the half ended 2-2, extra time. Early in the first half of extra time, England thought they should have had a penalty for a handball in the box, and they actually had a good case, but the referee ignored and asked for the game to carry on. Both sides went at each other throughout extra time, but no goal was scored, so the game had to be settled on penalties. The first 2 penalties were converted, Bertie for Argentina and Shearer for England. But the next 2 were played to the exact same side, and both were saved by the goalkeepers. After 4 rounds of penalties, nothing separated them. It was 3-3, so we were in sudden death. Roberto Ayala stepped up and converted the 5th penalty for Argentina, but David Batty was unable to do the same for England, and that was it. The game was over. England had been knocked out of the World Cup in the round of 16. The fans thought the boys fought a good fight. Taking it to penalties after playing more than half of the game with a man less was very commendable. As far as they were concerned, everyone did a good job. Everyone except David Beckham. All the blame was heaped on him, and it surely did not help that the England coach came out after the match to publicly blame Beckham for the defeat as well, saying the midfielder let his team down.
Unbelievable, Gary, unbelievable. We couldn't ask more from the players.
But a mad moment by David Beckham probably cost you the game at the end of the day.
It's cost us dearly.
Glenn just created an absolute shitstorm publicly for David and for the whole country.
The headline on the Daily Mirror the following day was 10 heroic lions, 1 stupid boy. The Daily Mail called David Beckham's action lunacy, while the Sun described it as a moment of madness. Days after the incident, the country was still fuming. The Daily Mirror went further to make a David Beckham dartboard with the player's face as the bullseye and urged readers to take their anger out on him if they still felt bitter. Meanwhile, fans were hanging a Beckham effigy outside a pub in London. But why exactly did England react with such intensity? The truth is, football in England has always been more than just a sport. It's deeply intertwined with national identity and pride. Beckham wasn't just seen as losing a game. He was perceived as humiliating an entire country on the global stage. To the fans, it felt personal, almost like betrayal. In many ways, the media significantly fueled the public's rage, turning a single mistake by a young player into a full-blown national scandal. The relentless headlines and sensationalism from newspapers created an atmosphere of hostility that went beyond football. It felt as though the entire country had declared war on Beckham. The man himself kept receiving several death threats and even bullets in his mail. It was absolutely crazy, complete chaos. In interviews years later, Beckham revealed the full extent of his suffering, saying, "Everywhere I went, I was hated. There were times I didn't even want to leave my house. I felt trapped, completely isolated."
People would be spitting at him, people would be, going to barge into him, to knock into him, like, "Fucking this, you're this, you're that."
And all this didn't stop when club football resumed. The fans kept chanting, "You let your country down" at David Beckham. Even the United coach Alex Ferguson, who showed a lot of support to the player, was on the receiving end of the anger from the fans.
I said, "David, how you doing?" I said, I think I got quite emotional. He said, "How you doing, son?" I said, "Not great, boss." He said, "Okay." He said, "Don't worry about it, son."
Now, till them go and get a holiday, come back, we'll look after you.
But Sir Alex created an island. And any unfriendly that came near the island didn't get near it. We'd, them off.
They reportedly threw beer glasses and stones at the manager, chanting, "We hate Beckham." The player has since talked about his experience and how it felt going from being the country's sweetheart to the most hated. He said he wished there was a pill one could take to erase certain memories. It was a very difficult period for him, and it really affected his mental health. His wife even said that he became clinically depressed as a result of everything that followed that incident.
And you can't even explain how that feels because we couldn't hide.
But thanks to the support he had around him, he managed to make it through. But it took years. 2 years later, at Euro 2000, Beckham was still being taunted by his own fans. In the group game against Portugal, which England lost 3-2, Beckham set up both English goals, but he was still constantly picked on by a section of the England fan base, so he reacted by putting up the middle finger to them. He was fed up. At this point, everyone admitted it had gone too far. Even the papers who had spearheaded the hate in 1998 were now calling for fans to move on. It still took time for the entire country to completely move on, but salvation finally came in 2001, 3 whole years after the incident. England were on the verge of missing out on the 2002 World Cup. They needed to avoid defeat against Greece to secure qualification, but going into the final seconds of the game, they were losing 2-1. But then, David Beckham, who had recently been named team captain, won a free kick in added time, stepped up to take the free kick, and scored from 25 yards out to send England to the 2002 World Cup. With that strike, all his sins were forgiven. His slate was wiped clean, and he became the nation's sweetheart once more. He would then go to the World Cup and exert revenge on Argentina by scoring the winning goal against the South American nation to ensure that they got knocked out in the first round of the tournament. It was a very tumultuous couple of years for David Beckham and his family, but thankfully he was able to turn things around and become a hero once again. David Beckham's story is a powerful reminder that even heroes stumble. One mistake nearly ruined his legacy, but resilience, redemption, and time gave him the chance to rise again. Behind the headlines was a human being, flawed but unforgettable. You've seen how one red card changed a career. But what if one goal, clear as day, was never counted, and it altered the course of football forever? Click here to watch what really happened.